Welcome to Geared for Combat, a series where we explore and discover new ways of weaponizing your champions. In the first video in the series, we cover Thresh, the Chain Warden. Thresh is traditionally used as a support tank, earning hard crowd control, fair damage, and the ever useful lantern. With the ability to set up kills for his lane partner or his team, even from the support role, Thresh is quite the playmaker. However, with up to a 200% AD ratio on his next order attack, and on-hit damage equal to the number of souls harvested, it may prove possible, and even tempting, to greedily set up those kills for yourself. With a skill shot functioning as a stun, short pull, and gap closer, as well as the incredibly fast knockback of Flay, Thresh has high synergy with cooldown reduction, and building like a tank can help him survive in close quarters in order to let off all of his utility. Thresh's active ability scalings are low, save for the box. So, Thresh is ill suited to ability power builds, though with an infinite scaling on hit, building for magic damage is far from impossible. Thresh's base attack damage at level 1 is 48, the 5th lowest in the game, and it doesn't get much better since he has the 6th lowest attack growth in the game, at merely plus 2.2 per level. Even at level 18, his base AD sits at 85.1, remaining the 5th lowest. As a result, items like Trinity Force and Steric's Gauge, which work with base damage, are discouraged. Thresh also suffers from a short attack range at only 450 units, another detriment to using his damage capabilities. His base attack speed is 0.625 attacks per second, and gaining 3.5% per level to reach 1.001 at level 18. However, Thresh suffers from a unique nerf, where unlike every other champion, his attack wind-up time is reduced only a quarter as quickly, at only 0.25% reduction per 1% bonus attack speed, unlike the 1-1 ratio that every other champion has. This means Thresh is weaker at orb walking than others, and thus is not suited to squishy marksman builds that rely on kiting to survive. However, this is not as lethal a nerf as one may think, as due to the nature of your charging Flay passive, it can be more optimal for Thresh to wait and build up a single stronger attack while moving, instead of attempting to move between several smaller attacks. Thresh has a standard, flat 30 magic resistance as with all ranged champions, and has the lowest base armor of any champion in the game, as low as 16 armor with no scaling per level. Instead, Thresh gains 0.75 bonus armor with every soul acquired. With a permanently low base, Thresh has increased vulnerability to the percentage bonus armor penetration of the last Whisper line of items. Thus, he can never be as durable as other true tanks such as Malcolm. However, having mostly bonus, and in fact infinite bonus armor, has its synergy with the Unyielding Mastery, as well as Thornmail, which reflects damage back to auto attackers based on your bonus armor. Health ranges from fair at level 1 with 561 hit points, to fairly high at level 18 with 2141, outdoing most other champions including several tanks. Thresh has 335 movement speed, equal to most other tanks. To take an alternative yet effective approach to gearing Thresh for combat, top lane is most suitable. Thresh is far too fragile to be played effectively as a jungler or marksman, and low range just further drives him away from the latter. Top lane, being home to many tanks, suits Thresh well, where he can even gain a strong upper hand against many of the common melee top laners. To make full use of both Thresh's offensive and utility capabilities, it is essential we split the item slots into a few groups. The first, one slot dedicated to our boot choice. Second, either 2 to 3 offensive item slots for damage. And, in accordance with that choice, 2 to 3 defensive item slots. This is to ensure a build that works with Thresh's flexible kit and maintains enough durability to still comfortably use his close range abilities, though not at the cost of damage. Depending on the game, one can itemize as few as even 1 offensive item and prioritize tankiness, or vice versa, though a maximum of 3 offensive items is strongly recommended. Due to the huge versatility in Thresh's kit, it is impossible to simply choose one build to rule them all. Instead, you can split offensive Thresh builds into 2 categories: burst and poke, or sustained DPS. In either case, the usual AD Sassy items suit Thresh well. Doran's Blade will grant raw attack damage as well as a small boost to your hit points, which can make all the difference in early engagement. Alternatively, if you're confident such will not be necessary, you can opt to take the Cull instead, which allows you to pay back its own gold cost and even make a profit once you kill 100 minions and sell the item. Where necessary, you may also choose Doran's Shield, Corrupting Potion, or even Cloth Armor as defensive starting items. When building for burst, your priority is to increase your total attack damage to make excellent use of your 200% AD ratio. Though any AD item can work, BF Sword is a fair goal for your first recall, and will be a satisfactory amount of burst until you finish your essential second item. Once mid-game begins, teamfights will be difficult without any defensive items due to your low range. So, quickly include a rapid fire cannon in your item build, preferably after you have powered your passive with a chunk of AD, be it from BF Sword, Caulfield's Warhammer, or even a Serrated Dirk. Rapid fire cannon will increase your first auto attack's range to 600, making it much easier to safely land that empowered strike. Attack speed and critical hit chance is also most welcome. At this point, you can further increase your cannon's damage by finishing your AD item, or skip onto defense if the game is not in your favour. The most versatile option to pair with rapid fire cannon would be none other than Essence Reaver, providing a hefty amount of attack damage, critical chance, and granting 30% cooldown reduction so long as you have rapid fire cannon. As mentioned, cooldown reduction has incredible synergy with Thresh's kit, making him a worthy peeler or disruptor while still itemizing for damage output. Alternate options are any of the lethality items such as Duskblade of Drakthar, though if one is feeling adventurous, Infinity Edge can certainly pack a luck-infused punch. Moving on to defensive slots, you need to aim for a good amount of health, armor, and magic resistance. It is arguable that Thresh benefits less from armor items than health, since he already gains armor infinitely from souls. So though a Giant's Belt and Spectre's Cowl are fair defense, if the enemy has high physical damage or physical carries, buying armor earlier becomes essential, and vice versa with magic resistance for high magic damage. Randuin's Omen works well against critical strikes, and Sunfire Cape works brilliantly up close, when the perks of Randuin's wouldn't be put to good use. Frozen Heart can seem tempting, but lacking health in these item slots may leave you very vulnerable to alternative damage types. The cooldown reduction is overkill if also running Essence Reaver. If running Duskblade and you desire a third offensive item, taking Edge of Night for its defensive perks or Ghostblade for its mobility can add some additional lethality to your Duskblade's true damage hit, granting even more burst to your strike. The next option is a health and magic resistance item. The Cowl line of items, Banshee's Veil and Spirit Visage, both provide a fair number of defensive stats, Banshee's Veil having the edge in spell resistance, and Spirit Visage boasting superior health and regeneration, as well as 10% cooldown reduction, allowing you to cap your CDR with Essence Reaver. Your 6th item is up to you, and what you feel is necessary for the game. Additional offense can help keep your squishy opponents down, The Last Whisper line of items can help break through their attempts at defense, and while Void Staff can do similarly, its ability power is somewhat wasted on Thresh's poor ratios. Alternatively, more defense can never go wrong. You can either stack resistances or buy pure health items, in which case, Frozen Mallet provides a fair chunk, while even adding some extra hurt and utility to your strike. For boots, you can either use the standard defensive Ninja Tabby or Mercury Treads as required, or empower your strike further with Sorcerer's Shoes, as your 200% ratio delivers its payload in the form of magical damage. Buying these offensive boots early can grant rather impressive damage to your squishy opponents in the early game, both from your 200% AD strike and your ability based damage. And that just about covers the Burst build, very powerful for annihilating squishy champions, much like a kind of ranged assassin, but trading some power for strong utility and defense. Moving on to the second build path, the DPS, your offensive items have a wide selection of options, and which you begin with depends upon your build goal, the enemy team composition, and your lane opponent. Guinsoo's Rageblade is the core of almost any DPS build for Thresh, providing extreme value in stats of attack damage and attack speed as it stacks up, and doubling your honour hit effects every other auto attack. As you stack on more items and more souls are required, the effectiveness of this item only gets better and better. Building from Pickaxe, this gives you fair burst potential from the early game, to then turn into a mid-game powerhouse once complete. However, Rageblade is best as a complement to other on-hit effects, and since your innate one requires stacking throughout the game, after you already have at least one on-hit item of your own, and once you've acquired more souls. An item with a stronger emphasis on attack damage is Blade of the Ruined King. Building from longswords and Bilgewater Cutlass, it has fair potential for burst in the early game, as well as fair sustain to aid with troublesome lanes. A defensive start against magical damage is Wit's End, providing fair on-hit magic damage and stealing magic resistance from a target. As a result, you can gain a maximum of 65 magic resistance from Wit's End alone, which exceeds even Spirit Visage's pure resistance value, while also providing some strong offensive ability. The shredded magic resistance will also cause your other magic damage, including even Sunfire Cape, to deal increased damage. Your allies will benefit as well. Nash's Tooth has a utility edge, providing 20% cooldown reduction, which is a stat hard to come by in this build path. It also provides a higher amount of upfront attack speed and ability power, which is seldom useful besides the box and its own passive. The item also deals damage equal to 15% of your ability power on hit. This includes the ability power you gain from souls, which is 0.75 for each, and the ability power you gain from stacking Rageblade, and other ability power items if you choose to build them. Eventually, it all adds up, but it will take a long time for Nash's Tooth to start out damaging the other options. That covers your primary choices of offensive items, and if you would like some damage statistics to compare them, there is another video I have that tests them, which you can find in the video description. Choose any number between 1 to 3, and unless you're going for the sole Blade of the Ruined King, always try to incorporate a Rageblade. What you choose and your build order should never be set in stone. Thresh has a lot of strength owing to his adaptability and versatility, so this is a trait that must not be ignored. If the enemy laner is a troublesome mage, rush Wit's End. If you can dominate the opponent, take a pickaxe to really nail them down and start towards your Rageblade. Again, your defensive choices mirror how you would take them on the burst build, though Wit's End and Sunfire Cape are a nice pairing. When using Wit's End, it provides a nice amount of magic resistance, so you can place your need for anti-magic on an afterburner while you prioritise armour and more damage if you already have it. Also of note is the synergy between the life-stealing Blade of the Ruined King and Spirit Visage, with its increased regeneration amplifying the heal. Similarly, you can finish a magic damage build with Hextech Gunblade to heal from all of your damage types. This would include Sunfire Cape and Thornmail, allowing you to heal from the damage dealt by these items. Your boot choice is similar to the burst path, just with the added choice of Berserker's Greaves, in case you need additional attack speed. Though in magic damage builds that design more damage, Sorcerer's Shoes may be preferable, since you likely have more than enough attack speed already. That just about covers the DPS build, which is focused on item synergy, adaptability, and mixed damage to absolutely shred your opponents, big or small, tank or carry. As for gameplay and strategy, it can take some time to adapt from a support Thresh mindset to a fighting Thresh mindset. Being able to take on an opponent by yourself is always a plus, but experience is required to learn your limits well, as with any champion. One of their roots in support play may find it hard to find this limit without dismissing Thresh as someone who shouldn't ever leave bottom lane. Though, after some time spent adapting, Thresh can really hammer down on some lane opponents who are either squishy or melee, or those unfortunate enough to be both. Early ganks become almost guaranteed kills due to the potential of the lantern gank, which can come from behind your own tower, straight from the jungle, or a regular river gank that can close the gap stealthily and so much faster than a jungler is capable of on their own. With 2 small chunks of damage on your Flay passive and Flay itself, taking Flay at level 1 can actually be pretty sizable burst damage in the first minutes of laning, Flay even doubling up as a disengage to deny the enemy trading back. It is possible to cheese an enemy at level 1, though it is far more reliable if you can reach level 2 before your opponent and use Death Sentence to catch them after a flash. With low base armor, however, minion damage can render this an easy to fail cheese, and should not be done without care. So, refrain from generating sodium chloride should you attempt and fail this tactic. As with most champions, if you begin to fall behind, cease building offensive items and build up defense to prevent further deaths. Giant's Belt or appropriate resistance are often good choices. Your mid and late game is where Thresh can shine, bringing powerful utility and fair damage to teamfights, and having such versatility in item choice can let you perfectly mould yourself to fit your team composition and battle the opponents. Truly, Thresh as a fighter and bruiser encompasses the traits of a jack of all trades, able to itemize for physical, magical, and hybrid damage types, and be as tanky or damaging as he chooses. He is also truly a master of none, and is no equal to an Assassin's Burst or a Marksman's DPS, and even due to his unique nature of his armor and lack of health or resistance ratios, he cannot tank quite as well as a tank no matter what he builds. However, he can do them all at the same time, and is the only ranged utility tank currently in the game. He boasts unique adaptability on top of some of the most useful spells in the game. As Thresh, free their souls, and let the wheel of fate churn again. Use your hatred to reave their souls. Become the Soul Reaver, the Angel of Death. Thanks for watching. Join me on the next Geared for Combat guide, where we shall be forging AD Quintessences. See you there.